Tom Urquhart, welcome to Tasty Humans, powered by What's On here at Media One Hotel, Dubai's greatest lifestyle, entertainment and business property. Okay, I am paid to say that. No, I'm not really. I love working here.
Did Mark make you say that?
Mark is going to be very happy that I said it, you know what I mean? But he allows me to have the freedom. So I wanted to ask you, I didn't want this to become the live version of me Googling you because you're a very well-known face and an incredibly well-known voice. I think that this could be the only episode I wouldn't have to film and everyone would know who I'm talking to. But one thing I couldn't find out on Google is your age.
Born 6th of October 1975.
Okay. So that makes you a year older than me. You don't look it.
49 this year, so just turned 49. Already planning the big 50.
So, yeah, we'll get to 50 later.
If I get there.
I keep thinking about that myself. I would say that, that puts you 14, 15 in 1990, 91, 92, something like that. Were you a raver or?
I was not a raver. I was. Does that come as any surprise to anybody out there? I was, 15, early 90s. I was at boarding school in Herefordshire. I went to an all-boys boarding school. Gets worse. An all-boys Abbey boarding school. So we're brought up by monks, basically. Which
that's not on Google.
Which is not on Google. But best days of my life, best mates of my life made at school. Absolutely adored.
Do you still keep in touch with them?
Oh, they're the only people. In terms of friends, I had friends at university and things like that, but never really kept in touch with them. But the friends that I made at school remain to this day my very, very, very best mates. I was archetypal sort of boarding school British lad. Loved my cricket, played cricket to a good standard, was playing good cricket at that age for school and minor counties and others, so that was a passion. I had awful acne. Awful acne. I had awful haircut. I had the old curtains and everything, a bit of an undercut.
Yeah, very early 90s. You know what I mean? The curtains, we all had them. I
was sort of gearing up to the naughty 90s there in terms of... Had Oasis hadn't really broken then. Yeah,
no,
there was a couple of years later.
93.
It's a bit later, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I would have been more Cure, the Wonder stuff.
Morrissey.
Not so much Morrissey. Morrissey was a bit too dark for me. But also sort of that was when I was trying to be cool with the cooler kids in school and things like that because they were all listening to that.
What were the cool kids doing in a school that's run by monks? Because my version of cool in the early 90s, because I was a raver, I think you're about to say something very different.
What were the cool kids doing? They were sneaking out for sneaky fags down. We didn't have a bus stop, but we went to the... What was it? We used to call it. It was basically where the sewage was collated. So that was where they used to sneak out to. And if they were really naughty, they were going down to one of the dodgiest areas of Hereford to try and catch a couple of cans of cider, maybe a bag of chips. Crazy. So
I was going to say, that is rebellion to it. I thought the rave era was rebellious, but inhaling cigarettes next to a.
We were touched by the rave era because we were very much in sort of rave central to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. So I was very conscious of it. I think because I became from my father went to work. My father worked for Pink Floyd for many years. So he was from a very, very conservative military family. My great grandfather, I should say, no, my grandfather was commandant at Sandhurst, and both the elder sons went into the army, sort of followed in his footsteps. And Dad rebelled a little bit, and rather than go down the military route, he didn't run away, but he became a roadie for Pink Floyd as soon as he left school.
Do you like Pink Floyd?
Love them.
I love Pink Floyd.
Yeah, and so that house was full of Stones, Floyd,
amazing,
Supertramp. And it was just walls and walls of LPs and loads of vinyl, etc. So that was the sort of music of my youth. A lot of soul music in the house as well and things like that. But when rave came along, you couldn't help but be excited by it.
Well, the fact that your dad was a roadie for Pink Floyd, you're way cooler than any raver ever he was. Because I'm a self-confessed, music freak, and I would argue for a very long time that the first, I'd say, 25 minutes of Dark Side of the Moon is probably the best music ever recorded. Because of the influences of the guitar and the long vocals and the synths and everything like that.
But it's so funny
stunning.
You say that. I've been, and it's interesting because I've got 3 children and they're all old enough to open a can of beans now and things like that. So they're making up their own minds about music, and it's amazing how many sort of old artists they're sort of getting into, and it's quite refreshing to sort of them play that, and you're like, why are you listening to this? However, I was talking to them about this, and they can't deal with the long plays. They can't deal with concept albums and things like that, and that whole idea of listening to an album from first track to final track and the whole process of that, they just can't get their head around it because their
attention span is
the attention span, and
TikTok.
B, albums to them are just anathema. They've just haven't got a clue what I'm talking about when it comes to an album. All they deal with is singles. That's it.
Which is, I don't know. See, I have these very interesting conversations with some people on this podcast about us and the younger generation. And I've recently done one with a young lady called Rupa, who's 22. And she came on specifically to talk from that perspective. Fascinating, But it's like, do you think they're missing something when it's like the album versus the singles, or is this just the way they're growing up versus the way we did, where every generation thinks that they had it, good, and the kids now are absorbing media and movies and television in such a different way?
100%. I think that because their attention spans or their synapses, their brains are driven towards that. More is more, rather than less is more. So, my youngest daughter, who's 15 now, will literally disappear into her room and coil up like a prawn, and just and it's literally just content. But she's not watching any one thing. Whereas when I was her age, and going back to the 15 years thing we were sort of talking about, when I wasn't at school and out playing in cricket nets, etc., when I was at home, I was up in my room. And I would listen to Dark Side of the Moon from start to finish. I would listen to Rattle and Hum from start to finish. I would listen to Joshua Tree from start to finish, etc. And it was almost, because that's how you had to consume it. Whereas now you're not really getting that long play stuff. So I don't think we had it better in any way. It's just that's the way that we were sort of taught to consume music and talk about music, whereas now it's a very different feel. And I think your point is very valid about attention spans. That's just everything. Sport's my other big thing, as you well know, and can I sit through 90, as much as I'd love to, sit through 90 minutes of football with my Manchester United supporting son.
How old's your son?
He is 18 now.
Oh, so he's classed as a man. Man U. How could you?
How could you?
I mean? Yeah, how could you?
Chose the wrong
If
United.
he was a lot younger, I'd go, oh, no, it's okay. No, Man U, ridiculous.
But he loves his football, he loves his rugby, he loves his sport in general, but will not sit or cannot sit through 90 minutes and just doesn't see the point because he says, okay, I'll get to it. I know when the goals are going in because it pops up on my phone and I can see it, in real time then. Why do I want to watch 90 minutes when I can watch 2.5 minutes at the end of it, literally as the final whistle goes, etc., which will sum up everything that I need to know? It's just a different mindset altogether.
Because they don't understand then the tactical side when you're actually watching it. It almost sounds like they've slipped into the mindset that the Americans had when soccer went first over there, which is such a low scoring game.
Yeah.
Why do we need to sit through all this?
Yeah.
And I actually remember they wanted to change the rules of our football, you know what I mean? The real football, where they wanted to draw an extra line on the pitch. And if you score behind this line, it counts as 2 goals. If you chip the goalkeeper from the halfway line, 3 goals. This is the truth. Because the first MLS, a penalty shootout started outside the box like ice hockey. And the guy would run up and pick the ball up and run. And then suddenly they came to their senses and realised it's actually football. But it's like they never appreciated tactics.
Yeah.
Slow build-up. What are you actually trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And I think it's a shame that if you only just want to watch the highlights, you'll never know what it feels like to score a goal in the last minute.
True.
To win,
Yeah.
and that explosion of tension,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is the best parts of football.
Exactly that, and that's why we do cling on to it, don't we? Although we know the writings on the wall, etc., there are those, dare I say it, Aguero moments that,
which you can't touch.
Which you can't touch.
Which you can't touch. And even though, I don't know, can I get away? I try not to be offensive on this, but I hate Manchester City. Do you know what I mean? Right?
You're in good company.
And do you know what the thing is? I'm a Chelsea fan.
Yeah.
So why do I hate the club bought by the billionaires that seem to pay for everything? Where maybe I hate it because we're the originals. You know what I mean? But the Aguero moment, yeah, you're just like, oh, I wish I was the fan. Do you know what I mean?
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a Man City fan then? I mean, and given all the pain they've been through, and given all the heartaches they've been through, etc. I mean, it's sort of taken away a little bit now, given the domination that we've seen from them in recent years. But yeah, that's why we sit through it, and that's why we sit through the, 100 million, 97%. Yes, you're right, Ron. Pundits at mid-time, at half-time and before, etc. For those moments which you just can't bottle.
And I think that people don't realise Man City were relegated 2 years in a row, I think, and were absolutely on their behinds, whilst their neighbours were winning everything.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying this about Man City.
You got a Chelsea fan over there and a West Ham fan coming together and praising Man City and all the extraordinary investment from our dear friends in Abu Dhabi.
100%, 100%. And I will be editing out the bits where I had said that I like Man City. Okay. So you have come out of monk school, you know what I mean? I'm sorry. I feel like I can just be this candid, do you know what I mean?
You're more than
You've
welcome.
come out of monk school, do you know what I mean? And I believe you wanted to be an actor. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was always very keen on the acting side of things, and I think an element of that has sort of continued to this day in the sort of path I've gone down, whether it be presenting award ceremonies for the good people at Motivate and others, but whether it be the TV work I do, the radio work I do, or whatever, there is an element of a mask, there is an element of performance as well. But I got some really good reviews for the stuff that I was at school and things like that, but we put on some good productions, and it was something that, it was a road I wanted to go down, and I still, to this day, believe it's the worst piece of advice I've ever been given, which was I wanted to go straight to drama school, and I did a lot of, applied to a number of them, etc. And my drama teacher at school said, it's not a good idea, go to university first, get a degree, and then if after 3, as it turned out to be 4 years, in London, having the absolute time of your life, and decide if after that time you come out and decide you want to go into drama school, then that's the best time. And I wish I just sort of stuck to my gut and gone straight to drama school then, because 4 years later, ain't no chance I was going anywhere else for another 3 years. That's for sure.
What sort of inspired you to be an actor then? Like, what was the movie in the 80s? It would have been where you went, yes, because the 80s was a great time for movies. The 80s and the 90s were amazing. Noughties are okay. Right now, it's a disaster.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Was there a single moment? I don't think there was. We did a stage adaptation of Another Country at school, and I watched was it Jeremy Irons? I think it was a Jeremy Irons adaptation of that film before we did the stage production, and that sort of caught the imagination. I think one of the first, I'm awful with names of films and things like that, I always completely forget them. I don't think there was one particular sort of eureka moment. It was more, I wasn't inspired by that. I tell you what I was inspired by was, once I was quite a shy kid, and I just sort of felt very different on stage. And it was that whole thing of bringing together everyone, peers and colleagues, from the geeks to the jocks to the monks, parents, teachers, blah, 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 all into one auditorium. And then that applause at the end of a performance was just like the most amazing feeling for me. And I think that's what got me was that you could get up and you could do something. It wasn't always applause, but on the occasions that it was.
Is it because there was no one there?
Yeah, exactly. It was right. Okay, wasn't. Oh, right. Okay, no, literally no one there. But on the goodies, yeah, it was that sort of moment, and I suppose that's what prompted me to want to take it further. I regret not taking it further, but I don't for a minute regret, the way things have panned out as well. But I wish I hadn't listened to my drama coach's advice and just gone hell for leather into the acting straight from school.
Do you think they do that because the teachers want to play it safe? I know that might be a bit of a... So it's almost like, yes, you could be good, you could be talented and everything like that, but go and get a degree because this is the type of thing that if it doesn't work for most people, and especially in the 80s and the 90s, everyone wanted to be an actor. Everybody wanted to be a rock star. Now they all want to be YouTubers and influencers and God knows what else. But it's like saying you have something to fall back on, but does that pursuit of the thing to fall back on stop you from...
100%, yeah. And I mean, it just seems so ridiculous when you look back on it with the clarity of hindsight and things like that. So you're suggesting that I take 4 years to go and get an English degree, so you can fall back on an English degree to do before you do your... It just flies against what I think should be the great advice, and what you hear from everybody. You listen to anybody out there, and when they say, "Well, what's your great advice to those setting out?" It said, if you believe in yourself and you believe in your dreams, give it a go, and give it a go as early as you can. Don't.
Then you can still go and do something
exactly.
and fall back on it.
Fall on your face. Go to acting school, fall on your face, and decide, oh dear, okay, what should I do now? Then do an English degree afterwards if it doesn't work out. The idea of sort of forward planning, that you get your education in place and then pursue your dreams. If that dream is burning, you've got to go for it then, because that's the only time that you're going to be willing to eat beans left, right. With Nell and I suppose that was the first sort of film that I actually watched and went, that
is a brilliant film. There's There's the With Noel and I drinking game. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah.
There's
the With Noel and I drinking game, and I can't remember what it is. It's every time they drink, you have to drink.
Exactly that.
And they drink a lot.
Exactly that. There is the With Noel and I drinking game that you watch the film with friends.
Yeah.
And you have to consume the same beverage of choice at the same time. Yeah. Never played it.
No, neither have I. And I would never would I actually condone suggesting it, that you do it. You know what I mean? So did you get your English degree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So degree in English.
Yeah. Got my English degree, took a little longer. I took a year out. Went to Malta for a bit, worked on yachts over in Malta. I went to France for a bit, worked in a couple of vineyards over in France, and then moved up to the Big Smoke, and I was working in London. Again, would never recommend that to my kid. I went to university in London, which is brilliant because it's London.
Where are you about to? What year is this? Late 90s?
This was mid-90s. Yeah, this is what, 94, 95 or something like that. I mean,
it's when I lived in London. And
flipping good time to
be in London. I was living in Finsbury Park and Tottenham and stuff like that. It's a brilliant time to be. London then.
Oh, that summer. What was the Euros summer when?
96.
Yeah. Still, I still put that down as one of some of the best days, the best weeks of my life. I mean, everything was perfect. The music, the weather, the football.
Because that was all Oasis, Britpop, and what has become rinsed out and cliched, which is It's Coming Home, right? But we were there when that song first came out, and what people don't realise is the England national team were in the bin.
Yeah.
Didn't go to the States in '94. Mm-hmm. Terry Venables had Paul Gascoigne in a dentist chair. The drinking in where was it? In I think
Singapore,
it was Bangkok or something like this.
Yeah.
Before the tournament, so it was all. We're hosting the tournament. We're going to completely fail, and the complete opposite happened. And I remember it was just magical, because London in the summer when things are good is the best place to be in the world. London any other time, or England when there's no summer, is a different.
Can be a bit more challenging, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean that summer was just genius. I mean, I think that the big problem for me, and again, my kids are getting to university age now, and sort of talking about that, was that going to university in London is great because it's so convenient, but it opens up, especially, if you're a lad from the Shires and you go up to London, up to the Big Smoke, your eyes are open to all sorts. And I just found myself working my socks off. To live in London, never lived in digs, never lived on campus or anything like that.
Where were you living?
I was living in Battersea.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lovely part of town,
living
to be
in
fair.
Battersea and working in Fulham at the place called the Harbour Club in Fulham, and then commuting out to I sort of did a split university course. So I did elements down in Egham at Royal Holloway, and then elements at UCL as well. So I had to work out which sort of English, your Middle English, your Old English, your New English, and work out where you were. But university was just, it was something I was doing in order to get a degree, but I didn't give myself an opportunity to have fun at university. I literally went for the learning part.
Studying English doesn't sound like fun.
And it was a lot of reading, or allegedly a lot of reading.
Well, your English is very good, so it must have worked.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Because it's one of those ones when you come somewhere like Dubai, and I remember coming here, I've been here for 24 years in Dubai, but and every time I say to somebody, that age old question, what did you study at university? And I say, I studied English. And for somebody who's not from the UK, when you say you study English, they go, but don't you speak it anyway? I said, yeah, it's a bit more than that, but I'm not sure how much it's helped me. But yeah, it's one of those ones that I suppose a little bit of regret that I didn't commit the sort of 3 years of a campus, knees up, as it were, and get that side of it. But then would I have made the friends that I had in London? Would I have gone to see Oasis at Earl's Court? Would I have gone to all the bits and pieces that the people I met at work and things like that? It's just ended up meeting my wife at work, obviously girlfriend at the time, and we both moved out here together, and got married. And so it was a hell of a lot of fun, and I've got such a special place in my heart for London. I mean, and a lot of people bag it, and I get it. I understand why people do that in the UK, but I just absolutely love going back there now.
You do? You like going back there? I don't. Do you know what? I don't go back as often maybe as I should to have an opinion that seems to qualify that it's all terrible. Like, I haven't actually been there for a couple of years.
Yeah. I'm not allowed to say that because I don't live there. And I think if you live there, and if you live in waking up in the dark and going to sleep, going to bed in the dark and things like that, and that it can take its toll, and it, as does anywhere in the world. But I think what the move to Dubai has done is make me appreciate the things I took for granted in the UK and London, as I'm sure that would be the case for anyone who's moved away from their home, as it were. Well,
before we dovetail into Dubai, I just have one quick. I have to ask my own personal knowledge, which is you're from as you've said, from the Shire, went to boarding school by monks, moved to London, lived in Battersea, worked in Fulham, which is southwest London, which is a lovely. I lived there in that area for about 15 years. Lovely part of town. West Ham.
I know, long story.
How did that? Because for people that, I suppose the easiest way I could say it, everything that you've done is posh. West Ham, not so posh.
Getting there. Getting there.
Getting there. Yeah, not in the 90s.
Got a posher stadium now.
I'm knocking West Ham from a footballing perspective. Do you know what I mean? But so how did you? What was it about West Ham? I asked Mark the same thing about Liverpool.
It's a question I get asked all the time. I'm obviously very mixed up because when I go and watch West Ham and everyone turns around and says, "You mate, you're having a laugh, aren't you?" And equally because I'm from Scottish heritage as well. So if Scotland play England in football, rugby, or anything like that, I'll sit there and go, "Come on, Scotland!" and everyone's going, "Again, I mean, really, what are you talking about?"
And then when England score, you cheer.
The West Ham one, very quickly. I was born in 1975, as I mentioned. West Ham were very good in 1975. It was there or thereabouts that they were winning things, silverware and everything. They had a brilliant team as well, because a lot of the World Cup winners, obviously, had been generated at West Ham.
And West Ham, I will say this, West Ham won the World Cup.
Yeah.
Was it? Was it 9 or 8?
8 or 9. Yeah, 8. I think it was 8 in the last squad, but the initial squad, there was 9 or something like that. Yeah.
Fair play to you.
Born in 75, My father was working in London at the time. He wasn't working with Pink Floyd. Then he'd gone on to work with, another name drop here, Tony Scott, because he worked at the moving picture company. So they set up
Tony Scott.
Yeah, Tony Scott's Tony Scott. And Dad was working. So they basically started out, before they made massive films, they were making commercials. It was an advertising agency. And my mother had been up to Scotland to see her mother, and then she'd come down to... No, where have we been? No, that's right. She'd gone over to Oxford to see her mother, who'd moved to Oxford since then. I came a little bit early, apparently, and therefore Dad wasn't at my birth, so he rushed to Oxford, where I had been born into this world. He stopped at the Hammersmith flyover. You know that petrol station underneath the Hammersmith flyover? It was there back then, apparently.
Yes. Yeah, I know Hammersmith very well.
West Ham had won one of the big cups, Milk Cup or the FA Cup that season. I was born in October, and there was a load of West Ham merch outside that was at half price. And my dad is... He's always got an eye for a bargain. That's all I can say.
Okay.
He's hence why he's in architectural antiques and a bit of a wheeler dealer, etc. So he bought the 3-month, or no, not even that, the 3-hour-old Tom Urquhart a pair of West Ham sweatbands, armbands, as he said on the pod, which he then delivered to the hospital and gave to my mother, his wife, who'd literally just given birth.
Said,
to which she was absolutely elated and said, "What are you going to do with that?" To be fair, I've still got those sweatbands. They were sort of my pride and joy while I was growing up. Absolutely loved them. Still got them to this day. They're a bit smelly now and a bit afraid. But West Ham, since the day I was born, basically, well, literally since the day I was born.
And you're right, they are moving in the right direction, very slowly. But they're definitely one of these teams, as a Chelsea fan, that the league wouldn't be the same if West Ham are not in it.
It's the academy,
because we like beating you.
It's the academy.
So look, I mean, you've come to Dubai, and again, I didn't want this to be a rehashing of what's on Google. So kind of everyone knows what you do, you know what I mean? I wanted to ask, though, I did hear that when you are interviewing or you're presenting, you do like to go a little bit off piece sometimes, or go a little bit off script, or try and chuck a curveball at people that you're actually sort of talking to. It's like, why? What is there something about the process that you just want to get more reaction or more honesty, or?
There's two sort of rules of thumb there. One is, I always think that you can overly prepare for an interview. I think that's one of the big sort of mistakes. And I get it. Look, if you're going to sit down with a world leader, etc., obviously you're going to do your homework, etc. You don't want to come out and seem silly. I think that the trap you fall into is your time frames, trying to squeeze all your questions in, but also going on rote with the questions as well. So you end up not listening to the answers. And that was one thing I was always taught from my early journalism days in the UK, also here in Dubai, in this very building as well, moving into the broadcast side of things. It's just listen to the answers, listen to where that's going. And rather than get to the end of that answer and go, okay, there's my next question. If there's something you can take from that conversation that leads on to something different, then that's the way that the interview or the conversation needs to go. It needs to be more conversational. So that's one rule. The other one, which is always trying to get people onto a subject that is not the subject they're there to talk about. So if
I'm doing that now.
If Rafa Nadal comes in to sit down with you, and he's obviously there to talk about tennis because he's quite good at it and has been for many years, but you also you might have heard that Rafa Nadal is obsessive about olives or obsessive about whatever football club he is and things like that. And if you can get off on that one, then it's amazing how people's faces brighten up when they're talking about something that other than their trade. And it puts people at ease. It makes things. I think it sort of builds that element of trust because you've broken through that sort of fourth wall straight away, and there's okay, he's not here to screw me over or whatever, but it just makes things a little bit easier, and you get much better answers on stuff that is not on their given subject. Because so many people have just been media trained to hell these days, and they know the answers. There's all this and there's all that, etc. So a little bit of a curveball, I think, always helps.
That's amazing. I found that out when I actually spoke to the legendary Mr. Ian Fairservice here, where I explained to you before when he showed me around What's On, and it's 45 years of What's On. I thought, what point do I actually break it to him that I really don't want to talk about What's On? And he took it very well. We had a really, really great time. Sort of, what are the moments when you're actually sort of broadcasting live, that can really sort of trip somebody up? Do you know what I mean? Like, are there things going on behind the camera where you're noticing it in your peripheral vision, thinking, yeah, oh, I nearly swore then. Well, you're thinking, fuck, we could be in a really, really tricky position here. And how do you kind of cope with that?
I think that's the beauty. I mean, a lot of people ask me about, what's your favourite medium, given all the bits and pieces you do, the variety of stuff you do, whether it's the TV, radio, live work, on location, off location, etc. There's a very simple answer for me. It's just live. I don't care whether it's live radio. I don't care whether it's live TV. Don't care whether it's live a performance. Being live, there is nothing like live. It beats as live, which is one of my bugbears. It beats pre-record.
What's as live? 10-second delay or something in case someone does something a bit off.
No, as live is a okay. So your show's going out this evening, but we'll record it 7 hours before, so that the editors can go through it and make sure that you're not offending anybody, but equally polish up other bits and pieces. So it's basically you got studio time, you record as live, and then play out. But it's never as live. That's the thing, because if something goes wrong, then either the director or producers or even the presenters will go, oh no, can I do that again? Because you're not live. I just love that tension of when you are live, and I love it when things go wrong when you're live, because I think that's what tests a presenter is okay, when somebody walks in front of a camera on set, etc., you either get completely fazed by that and ignore it, or you make light of it, or you make fun of it. When somebody drops something or breaks something on air, when somebody sneezes mid-air during the radio show or something like that. It's all these things that are just human, and I think the more you can humanize,
for sure,
what is a very unhuman element for a lot of people, and they go, oh my god, how do they do that, etc. The more you can humanize it and make it more real, and that's what I often think that people. With the radio show we do at the moment on Dubai Eye, we do the business breakfast, and obviously we have TV cameras in the studio. It's a 4-hour radio show that goes out as is on a TV station. And a lot of people, and I to at one point go, who in their right mind sits through 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. watching 3 people in a studio on static cameras, etc., doing their little bit. And it's because they want to see, it's not so much the interview and the content. They want to see Tom picking his nose in between bits and pieces. They want to see
the nonsense. They want to see the real person.
They want to see, but whether they're seeing the nonsense that sort of goes on behind the interviews and things like that, rather than the polished delivery that you get a lot of the time. So yeah, I've always loved to go, and it's the same with live events. If you're doing a live event, you've got 1,000 people at an arena, and it's all outdoors, and then it just starts pouring with rain. Well, what do you do? You either...
Which it did earlier this year, and myself and Mark are sat in the front row, and you're up on the stage, and I was thinking, okay.
But what do you do?
You're right, what do you do?
What do you do?
And bless Dubai, everyone stayed. Everyone stayed for their awards.
You made light of it, and it turns into a bit of a sort of,
Were you at the one where it rained?
Oh, I was.
You know what I mean? That sort of thing.
Yeah. And then... but again, it's rolling with that, and that's why I think the live element to any show is unique. I love it. I love the challenges of things going wrong. I love the challenges of things breaking, scripts going down, not knowing who's coming on, not whatever, because that really challenges you. And you get it as well, because afterwards, I mean, just that buzz that you get. And I often say to my wife and the kids, I sort of need half an hour at least when I get back from a gig, if you like, or whatever, just for that little bit of a come down thing, because there is a unique type of adrenaline that runs through your veins once you've done a live or whatever.
Do you think it harks back to what you were saying about when you were at school doing stage, where stage is not the same as movie, of course, because you're up there and you've got whatever happens, you've got to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, and do you think you've just carried that early buzz into whatever my career is? You know, I need to feel that. You know,
I
need
genuinely
to be
do.
on a stage looking at people thinking this could go wrong at any minute. And everyone's going to look at me. You know what I mean?
I genuinely do, and that's why, and it's that element that I love, you know, and I love working with great clients. I love working with great companies. I love working, but I love getting their product over. It's not about me. It's not about I think you've hit the nail on the head. I am basically just the bloke that is there to make sure that things go smoothly. And the more that you can sort of be in the background and just make sure, but when things do go wrong, pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about me getting a photo with Cristiano Ronaldo. It's not about me getting more followers
Do you
on
have a
socials.
photo with Cristiano Ronaldo?
No, I've never
I'm
asked him
kidding,
for one.
I'm
I've
kidding,
never
I'm
asked
kidding,
him
I'm
for
kidding.
one. You know, he's got one with me. No, but again, that's not something that doesn't come naturally to me. That whole sort of, you know, asking people for selfies, etc. But and that's why I think you know, a lot of people. No, I'm not going to say that one. But
No, you have to. No, you don't have to. You don't have to.
No, I just say I think
You
a lot
don't
of
have
people
to.
do, you know, do events and you know, they can charge stupid amounts of money for hosting events and things like that, and that's great. You know, if you're really good at what you do, that's brilliant. But you know, you can pretty much train your dog to do what we do. You know, if things are going right, you know, you've got a team that's written you an amazing script. You've got a team that's done so much for you. I think what tests presenters and broadcasters is when things go wrong and how you react to that. And either you freeze or you just roll with it.
Have you ever had something at one of the award shows where it's gone catastrophically wrong? I mean, Dubai's very, very well orchestrated. It knows how to execute. Do you know what I mean? But you know, what's I'm just going to say, what's one of the things at the award shows where
100%. I mean, I've done award shows where the AV's gone down completely. So you are there with no AV backup, etc.
Brilliant.
You're even the, you know, mic's going, so you just, okay, cool. What do I do? I'm not walking off stage. I'm just going to shout louder. You've got your hard copy, so you try and make the best of. I had times when people come up to accept awards who weren't the people that was announced as the award winner, and then that gets really awkward. So again, you make sort of light of the whole
Zoolander
thing.
situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've commentated, so I do a lot of polo commentary as well. I remember a classic one down in Abu Dhabi many years ago. It was an event for Prince Harry, and he brought his Centre Bali charity over, and they were doing polo day down at Gantut, and I remember the PA system. It was raining again that day, and the PA system went down, unbeknownst to me. And so I done Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, honour guests, before we get started with proceedings, please be upstanding for the national anthem of our host country, the United Arab Emirates. So everyone gets up and stands up and stands to attention, and no national anthem because the PA's gone down or water's got in the system, whatever. And this is when all my kids were at school at the time, and they were singing the national anthem every single day and things like that. So it was a bit of a running joke at home, etc. I put my hands up. I couldn't remember the words, so I wasn't going to try that. But I could remember the tune, and I hummed the national anthem on the microphone, which was working, and gave a sort of instrumental hum background to which others started singing around me. And I thought, right, either I am going to be asked
I was about to say
to jump in the first taxi and make your way to the airport.
Yeah.
Or, and thankfully, there was a couple of dignitaries at the event, Emirati dignitaries, and they came up and they said, well done, great save. Thank you so much indeed, because that could have been really embarrassing.
Because for people that don't live in this region, that really could have gone either way.
Could have really backfired.
Because you could have been construed as somebody that was making light of the situation.
Yeah. So I tried to do it. I tried to tap into going back to my boarding school days. I was a chorister at school, so I sang. A chorister, sang in the choir.
I wasn't raised by monks, so I don't know.
we went on tour, so I wasn't going to attempt to sing the national anthem. I think it wasn't my Catherine Jenkins moment, that was for sure. But it was just a little bit of a background, others joined in, and a little bit of a save. So, yeah, things go wrong when things are like... We had it the same when we did I remember we did the TV... I can't remember which one it was, but I was hosting the TV coverage of the New Year's Eve fireworks display, and it was the year when they basically had decided that they were going to put a fireworks barrage on the Palm, and it was going to be one of the biggest fireworks displays of all time.
15, 16.
Round about then, etc. And it was that classic 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, nothing. And that's because what we hadn't known and what was going on is obviously there's a lot of people trying to get on the Palm and a lot of people trying to get off the Palm. And Dubai authorities, kudos to them, had just said, you know what, I know this is massive for us and things like that, but health and safety comes first and we just can't allow this to happen. So we'd had like hundreds of cameras positioned on the Palm and bits and pieces like that. It was the day, do you remember? And it was meant to be Burj Al Arab it was Palm throws to Burj Al Arab, opposed to Burj Khalifa or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was where the Khalifa was going to go off, as they say, and then it was coming through the city.
That's right.
And then it was barge to barge down, because I was managing 360,
That's right.
which was next to Burj Al Arab.
Yeah.
And then that was all going to happen, and it was like this kind of half an hour, the world's longest fireworks display making its way down to the marina.
Yeah. So you've hit half an hour, and we've got all our cameras in place and bits and pieces like that, and me hosting we're up at what is White Club now? I think I can't remember what it was.
Meydan Racetrack.
Up at the Atlantis.
Nasimi Beach.
Nasimi Beach. Yeah. We were in there, broadcasting from there. And obviously, none of these cameras would show anything about the event. The only camera we had was one which picked up the Burj Khalifa about 5 kilometres away or something like that. So it's a shaky thing on the top of the Burj or somewhere like that was down there. And we basically had half an hour to fill on air commentating on one set of fireworks down there. Which another firework. Oh, look at that! A nice green one there. Yeah. So listen, think on your feet, and you got to. That's why you take on those challenges.
I was at the Cater Awards this year. We didn't win, thank you very much. But sat at the table, and I'd started the podcast at this point. And one of the things that I always, and I'm asking this for my own just personal understanding, which is one of the things I've always most scared of is mispronouncing someone's name. Yeah. So I've had a few where I've had to sit here and go, Anthea won't mind me saying so. I kept saying Alice, and she was going Alice. And the thing was, at the beginning, I had to say it like 10 times over and over and over again. And I remember being at the Cater Awards, and it dawned on me. I was like, how do you... Are you doing it phonetically? I wanted to ask, like, how do you... Because some of the names of our wonderfully divulged city that we live in, I think I'm never getting that right first go. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you prepare for that?
I don't always get it right. I quite often get it wrong.
Okay, that's good to know. I feel good now.
I've had some shockers in the past, etc. But I think those shockers sort of taught me two things. One, it helps to like cricket because you get used to sort of recognizing what should be difficult to pronounce surnames a little more readily. I think just the fact that I have been here for over 20 years and every day have sort of interacted with different nationalities, as you said, so diverse here that you've got so many different elements, that sort of helped. But the other thing is just planning as well, in terms of any event I do, making time to sit down with the editor, with the organizer, with whoever, and say, okay, this company name, that name, what's the official name? Now, a lot of the time they won't know. The very difficult ones, I break them up phonetically. And it will be cue words and keys for me that might not be anywhere near their name, but it is sort of phonetically spelt out with a couple of dashes in between. And the third and final thing is, once you've got all of that, it is key not to go through those phonetics slowly. You just get through them quickly. And if you say stuff, say stuff with quickly and with authority, and you've done a little bit of prep on it as well, invariably get away with it. Not every single time, and I've had some absolute clangers, and it's the worst thing in the world. It is the worst thing in the world because you've got one job, Tom. You've got one job, Urquhart. You've got one job, and you haven't asked the question. So I think that again is advice: is that ask in advance, and don't be shy to ask in advance.
Have you ever clocked anyone walking up on stage to collect their award, looking at you, just going?
I've had a couple when people.
Oh,
come
really?
up and say,
that was like a light-hearted
mate,
comment.
I had a couple. No, when people have come up and come over to the mic and just said, "By the way, it's blah blah blah." Yeah, and you just like.
I suppose their name does actually appear on a giant screen behind them,
and I was like, or someone will come up and shake your hand, and go, "Yeah, sorry, Tom, it's actually blah blah blah, whatever." And if that's the case, I will always make a point of going back and say, "Apologies, own your mistakes," and say, "Okay." What I meant to say was, and then there's other ones that are just that there's no real. It's like the insurance company Aon.
Yeah.
Aon. Again, there are so many different ways that you can get through it. That
so if someone did that to me, this is coming from you don't have to agree with this. If someone did that to me, and I had your surname, I'll probably just lean in and go, try and pronounce mine first time now. Go on, see how you get on with that.
But that's the other beauty is that
queer card.
Yeah. That's the other beauty is that because when you do talk about pronunciations and people say, and I invariably say, listen, mate, I've been living with it all my life, etc. Dad still at home has an envelope full of all the misspelt versions of our surname. Urquhart is a favourite. Haircut, yogurt. We've had them all.
Fair enough. Look, I mean, believe it or not, 45 minutes has gone past, which I can't. That has flown by. I did want to sort of touch upon before we sort of wrap up, which is one time that I watched Dubai Eye live on the television was during COVID, right? And we've had a wonderfully candid, energetic conversation, and you did actually turn up yawning, so I really respect the performance.
Been up for 6 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say no, 100%. I'm saying, but one thing I do want to ask is that what's it the business breakfast, everything goes on with that. People are taking that ad hoc as they something like COVID was incredibly serious. And just what was it like to suddenly have maybe your world flipped upside down, where suddenly now this is a very serious narrative going out, that that you're responsible for how people are sort of having a real devastating possible reaction to it. What's it like to have that level of maybe mental responsibility?
COVID changed it for us.
Going into it.
Yeah, it changed. I mean, obviously it changed things for everyone. It changed things for us at Dubai Eye because it was when people relied on local media.
Yeah.
Everyone was unsure. Everyone was locked in their apartments, in their houses, in their villas. No one really knew what was going on. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of unknown. And whilst, I'll put my hand up, when I get home later on today, I'll whack on Sky News or something like that because I get my sort of take on what's going on around the world, etc. But if I whack on Sky News, it's not going to tell me, which hospital is doing the vaccines and how long you need to be in, etc. So local media really came to the fore there. And it's sort of put to bed this whole idea, radio's dead and radio's got no place. Radio has a big place here. Uniquely, A, because of the traffic, and that's not going to come as a huge surprise to a lot of people. You're spending a lot more time in your cars, etc. But B, events like that when you need local knowledge. So the fact that I was blessed in the sense that I never really did a lockdown because we were seen as, what were they called, essential workers or whatever, so I had one of those passes, and was stopped on the Sheikh Zayed Road every day trying to get into the studio of a morning because I was getting to the studio for 5:30. So driving through Dubai at 5 o'clock in the morning is very different from driving through Dubai at 5 p.m. Driving through Dubai at 5 o'clock in the morning during COVID was nuts. Okay. It was insane how quiet it was. I mean, literally nothing other than emergency vehicles and essential. But the fact that we were given that sort of responsibility, I think that added to the weight on our shoulders. But it thrived. The team really came together. We merged a couple of shows. the feedback we got, the thanks we got from so many people during that time saying, thank you for A, what you did, B, I never saw it as a risk. A lot of people say, oh, thank you for putting your own health at risk and things like that. I never really saw it as that. But the ability to be able to be a platform where people could come on, just get an update of where we're at and what the numbers are at and what next and what the advice was key. I think it's when the news team really sort of gelled with us as well. And yeah, it was a horrible time, dark time for so many people,
100%.
but one that I'll remember for a long, long time because of what we had to do and what we ended up doing through it. So,
well, I do think Dubai handled it very well.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have hated to have been in the UK on the way that just the some people are doing it, some people are not doing it. The media is interviewing people and they're going, I'm never going to do it. And now you should. It's like, it was kind of the moment where it was like, do as you're told, and what happened in Dubai is they said, this is what you're doing. And we all did it.
Yep.
And of course, London is, I don't know, arguably 30 times bigger than Dubai. I get that. But it was definitely an example here of how everyone just behaved. Yeah. And we seemed to be out of lockdown very quickly.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was, and I think, we're very quick to forget, aren't we? That's what we do. We're very quick to forget. But it was a game changer for so many people, and look what it's done to the reaction of the aviation, the travel industry now, which was fundamentally changed since COVID.
Oh, hospitality. It was suddenly like, don't go anywhere where people are. I was like, hang on a minute. It's my life, my entire career,
So, no, I think it's always best just to remember those days as well. I mean, it was a fascinating time in terms of the challenges, mentally, physically, and otherwise. But yeah.
So the last thing I did want to sort of briefly touch upon, which is just, as you said, you would go home, put on Sky News, and as a journalist and someone, let's say on the inside, do you know what I mean? I'd like to sort of touch upon what's your opinion or how do you view global journalism at the moment with the rise of YouTube and I suppose I remember there was one thing I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but it was on Sky News and they were interviewing somebody in the street. I think there was like a riot or something happening and he'd been attacked. And this is a bit dark after our football and monk conversations, but he was saying, I was shouting out, press, press, press. And I remember thinking, well, hang on a minute. Are you, so has the rules changed where press used to have a pass or be registered? Now everyone seems to have a YouTube channel and says they're a journalist. Like, I just wanted to ask, how do you feel about that? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it spreading misinformation or is it actually spreading more facts? Like, just a general...
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate
comment.
I appreciate that you turn it. I'm not sure if I qualify as a serious journalist. I'm a bit of a fake journalist, if truth be told. But
do you want me to edit that bit out?
No, not at all. You can get that in.
I'm not going to.
But yeah, I mean, I think the 24-hour rolling news agendas that we've grown up and got used to and been part and parcel of are still strong and obviously drive news agendas. It still fascinates me now how news agendas roll at present because it's extraordinary how certain stories fall off the headlines when other things are going on, etc. And that's dangerous to a certain degree because all you're doing is consuming. And we all have our favourite news vendors. We all have our favourite news channels, etc. The integrity that the sort of established news channels and news platforms have, that's something that an opinion you build up yourself up with because you end up entrusting yourself to your newspaper and your news channel and who you listen to, etc. Does that negate the YouTube content or the YouTube reporters? It's more difficult because you haven't really got the regulators and the bosses editing that content and those opinions. So you don't have to go far to find an opinion and find your tribe. Is that a bad thing? I don't think that's a bad thing. The problem is, I think it's how it's how those opinions are now making it more difficult, as you say, for registered journalists, etc., to do their job. And that's why I think that a lot of news platforms are getting it in the neck at the moment. And as you mentioned, that the example you give is perfect, because you look at a lot of the narratives out there, and the media are public enemy number one. And the fact that the media are now being targeted in instance like that, and that's not alone, that's time and time again. I mean, we've just seen the election over in the United States. I mean, the media were targeted insanely through that because of which side of the pale you were on. So I think it's an interesting time for news coverage at the moment, and it moving forward. I always feel a little bit of a fake talking about it here, because we're just sort of blessed in one way or another as to the fact that we have the ability, you and I, to talk about this here, but at the same time, the one thing I think I like is that for a long time, this part of the world didn't get sort of recognised by the international media, or when it was usually in a bit of a sort of backbiting, jealousy, ooh, look at them over there and they live in their bubble narrative. I genuinely think that's changed recently, and I think that's changed again going back to since COVID. I think companies, individuals, media brands, and there are certain media brands that still want to have a pop at Dubai, want to have a pop at the region, etc. But in terms of the opportunities here now, and the opportunities laid bare for individuals and to come here and pursue their dreams and seriously as well, has changed fundamentally. And I think that's a good thing as a result of COVID. And that's something I really noticed during conversations, during Expo to a certain degree, but certainly COP last year, talking to big guns coming over here going, now I get it. Now I understand. I've been circumspect and probably a little bit critical up for a while, but now
until you live
here,
what you think is happening is not really happening. It's not just some excuse me, it's not just some sort of closed door of a bunch of people that wake up in the morning and drink champagne out of glasses with diamonds in. It's very far removed from that.
And it's that speed, and again, it's that speed of the way things are done here. And I think that's what has really resonated with so many people. COVID was a perfect example of the way that you could open up as quickly as you can. The infrastructure building, awful floods earlier on this year. Already, 3/4 of the city have got irrigation the tunnels being dug into the infrastructure of the city. I mean, it's extraordinary, the pace of change here. And whilst people have been quick to criticise that, not say people, but media and individuals have been a little quick to criticise that in the past, I think that sort of narrative has changed, and that's something that's good to see at the moment.
No, listen, and thank you so much for that answer, because I didn't mean to sort of maybe put you on the... Well, I did. Do you know what I mean? Put you on I want to chuck a little curveball in there. Do you know what I mean?
The only reason I say that is because I know for a fact that, whilst I'll sit there watching my Sky News of an evening, I know that, my children are not going to sit down and watch the news moving forward. They're going to
watch the highlights.
The highlights, and they consume it all from influencers and other means and channels. That's it. And so, and it'd be the same as me and my parents to a certain degree. It's a generational thing, and therefore, for me, sit and go, YouTube news and influencer news is not the way forward. It's just nonsense, because that is going to be the way that news is consumed moving forward.
So my final question is, it's a happy question, but what's it like to be paid to watch football and talk about it? Because it's kind of every boy's dream, or man's dream, definitely.
Yeah, so I do. As you say,
Excuse me.
One of the shows I do, obviously I do the Business Breakfast show on Dubai, but I also do Extra Time at the Weekend. Used to be called The Grill, into our 14th year now. Yeah, we're sort of all sports. Back again, we're saved from relegation this year by all the team at The Entertainer. So had the good fortune to come down to Garden on 8 for a couple of shows. Hopefully,
nice plug.
No, thank you very much indeed.
No.
Hopefully we'll be back very soon. Donna, if you're listening. It's a pleasure. When I started doing the Business Breakfast thing, I got quite a lot of stick online and certainly on air about, what the hell's the sports guy doing on the business show? What does the sports guy know anything about thingy? Look, sports is my passion. It's something that I've grown up with. It's something that I've had good fortune to be involved in. we started this venture 14 years ago with Barasti. That's where we started out. And the concept was, look, it's a Saturday afternoon. It's the biggest afternoon for sport across the world. Premier League is one of the biggest products, etc. Can you get 3, 4, 5 blokes, well, it doesn't have to specifically be blokes, just sports fans around a table in a bar watching a game, and bring details and other bits and pieces. Sponsors loved it. We've been doing it for the last 14 years. I love it.
Yeah.
Doesn't go down brilliantly at home every single time, but at the same time, it's a little bit of a release for me after the sort of intensity of the week, to be able to just sit and chat sport with mates at the weekend. I don't get paid on the scale of a Gary Lineker or anything like that, but
no, you don't have to
regardless,
reveal.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not going to reveal the contract negotiations that got on there.
Dirhams an episode.
But no, it's an honour and a privilege, and it's nice to be back. It's nice to be on the road with the boys again at the moment. It's a lot of fun.
Amazing. So, is there anything that you would like to sort of leave on the table to any sort of budding television presenters or radio presenters?
Just say yes. Just yes. That's always my advice. 2 pieces of advice that I get asked it a lot. If you had any advice for us, it's listen. When you're doing your thing, work on your listening. It's very easy to work on the chat and the me and the this, that, and the ego and the whole thing, but work on the listening, because that's why people are tuning in, because they're tuning in for the content, and you're not going to get any content or worthy content unless you listen to people from the off. And then the other thing is just say yes. I know that advertising campaigns, whilst we were growing up, said just say no, but just say when it comes to
there's a specific message being sent there which we can't go into.
but I'm anti that. I'm saying just say yes, not for that specific campaign, but when it comes to experience,
you've dug a hole now.
When it comes to experience in media, it doesn't come around that often. So when you get an opportunity, just say yes. And you will I can guarantee you will suffer from imposter syndrome. And you'll go, oh, but I've never done that before. And oh, but that's not an event that I don't think that I've got the qualities. Just do it. If somebody has asked you to do it, they've thought that one through and thought you're good enough for it. And it's all experience, and it all leads on to something else. So don't doubt yourself if that opportunity comes up. And listen, again, don't get bogged down in how much you're going to get paid for the event or whatever. Just say yes. And then look, if they want to pay you a little bit of beer money afterwards, great, no problem at all. If they want to pay you massive check after that, if you can just do it for experience, do it. Because saying yes and that ability to say yes and learn on the go is, I think, key. And it broadens your horizons, opens new doors, especially in a place like this.
Fantastic. Tom Urquhart. Did I say that correctly?
Perfectly.
Tom Urquhart, thank you so much.
Not at all, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming down doing it.
Not at all, mate. Thank you very much indeed.